Today, the deal to extend the federal debt ceiling worked out over the weekend will go before the House Rules Committee under the terms negotiated primarily between President Biden and Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The debt limit will be put off until at least 2025. Here's some of what will happen in fiscal 2024. Non-defense spending would be kept roughly flat. In the following year, it would be increased by 1%. There would be new work requirements introduced for some SNAP recipients, but there would be exemptions for others. There would be no changes to Medicaid or Social Security. The deal ends a months-long stalemate. It's not yet a sure thing that this will go through. It has to pass both the Rules Committee and both houses, and then it would reach the president's desk. If this is not fully resolved by June 5th, the Treasury Department is warning that a federal default could leave it short of the necessary money to cover all of the obligations. For more on this, I'm joined by Bronx Congressman Richie Torres. Good to have you here this morning.
Of course, an honor to be here.
Where do you see this going over the next few days? What are the sticking points that could derail this?
Well, first, I'm confident that the votes are there to raise the debt ceiling and prevent a default on America, which would be an utter catastrophe. The greatest cause for concern for me are the changes to the SNAP program. So under the existing SNAP program, childless, able-bodied adults from ages 18 to 49 are subject to work requirements in order to be eligible for food assistance. The new deal would extend the age limit from 49 to 54. And so I'm curious to know how many people in my district are going to be subject to the new work requirements.
And we don't have a specific breakdown of that. What I do have is a map that looks at, as of March of this year, the number of SNAP recipients in each borough, and there are a lot of them in the Bronx, 498,000, almost 500,000 SNAP recipients in the Bronx. Clearly, some of them are in that 49 to 54-year-old age group. We did mention that there are some carve-outs for people who are not able to work. What will the implementation of that be, though?
Well, I would make 2 points. The overwhelming majority of SNAP recipients are families with children, senior citizens, disabled individuals, all of whom will continue to be exempt from work requirements. The new deal not only includes new work requirements, but exemptions from work requirements. So veterans, homeless people, and youth aging out of foster care up to the age of 24 are exempt from work requirements for the first time ever. So there is some good news in that deal.
And, you know, both sides are trying to sit down and come up with something that will be seen as a concession to the other side, but not be terribly painful to the people that they are representing. And you know, they had a challenge here. There were the far left members who were pushing for bigger changes. There were far right members who are stuck on a number of issues. Do you think that they were able to reach an appropriate compromise?
Look, the Republicans are in control of the House, and the position of the Republicans has been essentially, we are going to default on America unless you give us the severe budget cuts we want. That, to me, is not a good faith negotiation. That is extortion. That is, in the word of Matt Gaetz, a hostage taking. And any deal that emerges in the midst of a hostage taking is destined to be a raw deal for the American people. And here's my real concern. The Republican posturing on the debt amounts to little more than scapegoating and stereotyping of poor people. Republicans were advocating for increased defense spending, which will lead to more debt, not less. Republicans were advocating for weakened tax enforcement, which will lead to more debt, not less. And so the agreement makes it harder for poor people to access food, but easier for rich people to cheat on their taxes. And that tells you everything you need to know about the warped worldview of House Republicans.
What have you in these last few months seen as far as the dynamic within the House Republican group? Because you've got the more moderates and Kevin McCarthy trying to sit down with Joe Biden, and then you have people who have been inflexible on the far right. Are they themselves able to function as a group and ultimately come to a single voice?
Look, the House Freedom Caucus, which consists of about 40 members, is implacable. And there's no point in placating the implacable. But I found it appalling that the Republicans focused all their energies on savaging a program like SNAP, which only provides an average of $2 per meal, $6 per day. Right? The Republicans are scapegoating poor people for a debt crisis that is largely of their own making. right? The Republican wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, the Republican tax cuts in 2001, 2003, and 2017, and the Republican recessions in 2008 and 2020, all of those events represent the vast majority of debt that's been accumulated in the past 20 years. The Trump administration alone accounts for 1/4 of all the debt accumulated since 2000.
I want to touch on one other topic with you. We've run out of space for migrants coming to New York City. Mayor Adams has been trying to rely on neighboring counties, has not necessarily received a warm welcome for those initiatives. Repeatedly, both the governor and the mayor have said they need help from Washington. What could Washington do to try to relieve this crisis in New York?
Look, it's fundamentally unfair that the burden of our broken immigration system has fallen disproportionately on the shoulders of New York and Mayor Adams. In the long run, we have to fix our broken immigration system. But in the short run, the president should grant asylum seekers here in New York temporary protected status, which will enable them to work. These immigrants want to work, want to contribute to their families, and want to contribute to the American economy. We should enable them to do so.
Why do you think that hasn't happened yet?
There is a school of thought in the administration that TPS would invite more asylum seekers to come. I find that argument to be absurd. And if we're going to have masses of immigrants come to New York, we should enable them to work and make a living. And it makes, there are whole sectors of our economy, from agriculture to healthcare to construction, that would come to a grinding halt without the contributions of immigrants.
Congressman, thank you for being here this morning.
Of course.